Oh, God. Where Dave misses it all. Okay. I can't. All right, we are in our Lucan Biddulph special council meeting for Wednesday, December the 11th. And council it's just coming back from an in-camera session, a closed session, in which we were meeting to discuss a property matter. And of course, that was under section 239 of the Municipal Act. So before I get started, I'll just do the land acknowledgement, and I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of Indigenous communities and our shared cultural heritage. Lucan Biddulph is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples that have a unique relationship with the land and its resources. Excuse me. These peoples continue to shape the history and economy of the township. Lucan Biddulph recognizes the importance of consulting with our Indigenous neighbors in an effort to build constructive, cooperative relationships through meaningful engagement and to inform our decision-making and build partnerships. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. So we have a staff presentation tonight, and that is the 2025 capital budget planning. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Financial Services, Catherine. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Staff and I are pleased to present our capital budget for 2025. We have a lot of projects in here that we'd like to review and discuss. But before we start that, I'm just going to go through, keep in mind some of the sources of funding that we have for projects. So of course we have our Canada Community Building Fund, the CCBF, which formerly was the gas tax. And we haven't used any for a year or two. So we have about 545,000 in that plus some interest. The Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, or OCIF, we did get our funding announcement, and we did not use our 2025 amount because remember those both were going to be used on Water Street, which you'll see later in the presentation that was carried forward into 2025. So we have about 885,000 in OCIF plus some interest. Of course, there's some government grants that we have some applications out there for already, and we'll continue to look for more opportunities in that department. Of course, donations are always welcome. And then we look at reserves and reserve funds, which is what you save from the tax rate and for planning. And of course, the last thing you want to do is loans, or another option is loans. Speaking of loans, so on the next slide, I have a list of all our current loans that we have, as well as the potential loan for the Lucan Soccer Complex. Once that's complete in 2025, then we will enter in the loan to pay for that and put an estimated amount there. And that all of that is included on the reserve summary schedule that you had. And all of those are included in additional commitments that you'll see in that line. Okay. If there's any questions about any of that, I will move forward to talking about the projects. Seeing none. Okay, we'll move on to our first project is regarding the downtown improvements, and I'll pass that off to Lisa and Jeff to discuss.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. The first item that was on the list is the downtown streetlights. We're looking at changing out the poles and bringing it into the, I don't know, Lisa, the idea that, we are starting to coordinate our colors of black and little changing them up downtown. So we are doing that. I'm part of this project because as part of the streetlights replacement, we know that there's a need for upgrading the electrical system that exists, the underground cabling that's actually in the ground for these streetlights. I've been told needs to be upgraded. It's not that it needs to be upgraded right away. It's just when we go to do something, we need to upgrade the electrical. So it's broken down into two components. The first component, the 110, is for the light posts and that's the whole post in the ground, and with the light heads on top. And then the other fund of 140 is an estimate to see if we or to redo the electrical underneath the sidewalks in the downtown area. So that's what that project incorporates. I would like, I still think, I think it does have to go in hand in hand. I think one of the questions I was asked is, could you do the light poles and then upgrade the underground servicing later on? And I don't think that would, I think you want to do the whole thing because of the safety issue of the in-ground stuff. So.
Yes, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'll continue on with Jeff's comments. So the streetscape strategy funds would be used to start this project along with the construction reserves. Staff are recommending or asking that we reallocate $60,000 that we had been kind of going over for a number of years to kind of create some sort of band shell on Market Street Park. And obviously that number is probably triple that now. So the thought is, given the upcoming changes to Market Street Park, maybe it's advantageous for that money then to be reallocated to streetscape strategy, which would allow us to kind of do this project. And it would bring up the streetscape strategy to about 200,000. With that. And so that would give us those funds to do the 110 out of streetscape strategy. And then the remaining funds would do some Main Street improvement projects. A portable washroom is one of the thoughts down on Main Street by the municipal parking lot. Since we have events down there, it's advantageous that we maybe have a public washroom downtown. And then some other landscaping and architectural work for the rest of the funds.
Do you want to go through the presentation first and then take questions?
Whatever council prefer.
Okay, we'll do the presentation and then circle back.
Okay.
Okay.
The next one is the equipment. So Public Works side of the list and Parks and Rec. So Jeff and Darcy will discuss that.
Thank you, Catherine. So on the list, the one we did talk about last year, and we have ordered it, but it is being delivered for 2025 is the roll-off system on the new tandem snowplow that's coming. We did pay for the chassis in 2024, so in 2025 we have 265,000 set aside, and what that is for the equipment of the roll-off system, which includes a dump box and a sander unit for the back of the truck. Also included, kind of in that same vein, is green waste bins. They will be designed to go on the truck, and we'll look after our own green waste, and we have that in the budget for 25,000 to purchase those. Having said that, when you go to do the operation budget next week, there is a savings that will show up in that discussion with the purchase of the green waste bins and the roll-off system. The new piece of equipment to talk about that to council is the wood chipper. It has been in our replacement plan for a number of years. We've noticed this year Parks and Rec are using the wood chipper more. My crew are using the wood chipper more. It's a unit that is still in use, but it really needs to be upgraded to today's standard with the health and safety features of the new chippers. I think it's time that we traded in the old one and got a new one. Did some discussion in-house amongst staff whether we use it enough to rent a wood chipper. And I think the thought, between Parks and our department, and the need of a wood chipper during an emergency situation, qualifies it that it is probably a good investment of a piece of equipment for a municipality to have. So, we have included that for replacement in this year in 2025, but it has been right, Catherine, it has been in the equipment, plan, for a number of years. So this is not a new and upcoming surprise to anybody for the replacement. The following one is a roller attachment for the grader. This is not in the capital equipment list of items. So this is something new that I wanted to bring to council. I'm really excited about this. This is something that has come along in the last couple of years. And what it is it's a roller system that goes on your grader. And as you grade the road, and you put the gravel back down, the roller behind the grader packs it in. So it sets all the stones. I have talked to, Thames Center, Middlesex Center, North Middlesex. They all have them, and they're all using them. The feeling is, when it gets too wet, you can't use it, but during the right conditions, you grade the road, you set the stones, and it seems to make the road, you want to keep those stones set up in the gravel. So I'm excited to bring this forward for council's consideration. The next one is a snowplow. This is in the equipment replacement 5-year plan. It is the 2015 Freightliner. What I would like to do, if council, for council's consideration, is place the order for 2025 for a delivery in 2026. The current estimate on a snowplow is basically $400,000. This would not be a roll-off system. This would be our standard plow that we normally use. Nothing in particular different than the last snowplow we got in 2018 or 19 there. Pretty straightforward piece of item. And then the last one I wanted to bring up, and I've mentioned this before, and it comes to a little bit with level of service, is our sidewalk plow. Trackless unit. Trackless unit, I believe, was purchased in 2018. It's listed as a 10-year item that turns over. So 2028, it'll be time for replacement. With the expansion of our sidewalk system, it's getting longer and longer for the sidewalk plow to do its job. As well, we're starting to do bits and pieces of trails for the community with the sidewalk machine. We've really expanded it, and we're really seeing people really using the sidewalks at all times, whether it's the winter time or the summertime. And now that we've got our commercial center a little further out of town, we are relying more and more on the trackless unit. And one of the items that we have talked about, and we've mentioned this before, is if the trackless unit does break down, and we do have an issue with it, we really don't have a backup plan in place. You don't go to the local lease company and lease one. So, it's one of those things where I have mentioned that, it is a bit of a concern on the level of service as a municipality we want to supply on sidewalks. What I'd like council to consider is a purchase of a second trackless unit. Basically in the middle of the lifespan of the trackless system. So it'd be like a tandem unit with one coming, you'd always have a new one about every 5 to 6 years. And that way then, it gives you a few things. It gives you the backup. It gives you the ability to get the work done. If you need to put both units out there or use both units at the same time, it certainly, frees up our time a little easier. I was going to mention that, right now, during normal operations, we're out with the trackless 5 to 6 hours. During a heavy snowfall, it's anywhere from 8 to 10 hours with the trackless unit. And that's, with no breakdowns, obviously. We know we're going to have more sidewalks coming. We know those numbers are going to go up. So I think this is one I wanted to make sure that was on council's radar. I'm not asking that we approve anything in the current budget. I would like to bring a report back to council with further information, and maybe get some input on level of service that we're interested in. And I think just as we got past what we experienced in the last few days, we did have a repair. We actually had a couple of repairs with the current unit, and you can see how it does impact our level of service with only one unit. So I did want to bring that up at this time, because if we do bring it into play, it does affect the budget, and Catherine will have to put it into the 5-year plan for equipment replacement. So I did propose to Catherine when we talked about this, we currently have a 10-year lifespan on a unit. I think if we had 2 of them, we would extend that lifespan for a couple years to like a 12-year life cycle, knowing full well that we always have that duplication if we did have any issues. So I'd be confident in that, so that we could stretch that out a little bit further. And I did get a quote on a trackless unit, not saying that that's the unit we have to buy, but that's the unit we have right now. And a comparable unit with a blade, a sander, a blower, a snow blower, and the comparable unit that we're using right now came in at 224,000. It's up considerably since 2018, but that's a given. So that would be an addition into the equipment thing. So.
Okay. So I think Parks and Rec is next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my first request is a pickup truck. I know it was discussed last year during budget time about replacing the 2015, but we decided to push it one more year. I'm actually requesting that we keep the 2015 around for local stuff and for plowing snow. It is a good plow truck and a good salt truck. It is starting to get rough around the edges and a little tough, but I do feel that we need an additional truck for travel purposes, for getting us to parks, for getting us to other facilities, for going to Grant and back. And even when we invest in staff training, it's nice to have a reliable truck that we can get to the training with. So I am requesting a additional pickup truck for that use, and then we would keep the 2015 until it was no longer usable as a plow truck and a local in-town truck. A tractor. So the issue we're having right now with the tractor is we only have one, and we are trying to drag our diamonds every day. So the drag is on the diamond, but if we decide we want to put topsoil at the soccer field or at one of our parks, then we got to take the drag off, bring the trailer, with the top dresser. And then we have to actually load the top dresser with soil, put the tractor back on, and then go. So it's kind of it makes for a lot of steps, where if we had a second tractor that kept the drag on so that we could drag the diamonds every day, as well as load the top dresser with the other one hooked onto it, it just makes for a better service and a quicker job. And then the third one is the automatic lawnmower. We did the demo this year. I think it was in late September. I know Councillor Regan was there. It is a great unit. We definitely have the right space at the soccer complex for it. It's a big field, all 4 fields. It wouldn't take away from staff jobs, but allows us to relocate staff and reallocate staff to do other things. And it would allow for us to cut and basically wet. And it would just keep both fields short, so you wouldn't have those where there's grass everywhere and clippings everywhere, and it just makes for a good field, and it just makes sense in my eyes to go to the automatic lawnmower out there. So that is the other equipment purchase that I'm requesting.
Okay. Road.
Okay, capital projects that are out on the roads. I'll start with this one. The first one, Fallon Drive West, is an asphalt project that actually has been listed for, I think, 2 previous years. And we've really just been holding off due to the Donaldson construction of the Arva Springs complex, which is looking like it'll be done in the spring. So there'll be traffic coming in to go to that unit. So it looks like this will be the year that we extend the pavement there. So that's based on cost that the 145,000 is based on asphalt prices that we looked at from 2024. Traffic control measures. This is again a project that we were not looking at in 2024, but never got to it. It was, speed humps or speed carpets around some of our, controlling some of our measures around our parks, and seeing if they would, the idea was to test them out and see if they actually were, they did their job. 1, they did their job, but 2, they were accepted into the community and supported before maybe making more purchases in other areas. So we were going to look at like a temporary speed hump situation with lines and signs, and one that could be taken up during the wintertime and put back down or moved to a different spot if needed. So that's still in for council's consideration. It is a carryover from 2024. The PWE building payment extension, this is for an asphalt pad that we wanted to extend out the back of the building. It's a carryover from 2024. I did get some pricing, but due to the timing and the companies, it just never got completed this fall. Sidewalk extension, Main Street North. We did finish off that project in 2024 to what needed to go in. I did put 10,000 in the budget this year, and this is for a little section on the other side of the main entrance, or the south. I shouldn't call it the south. It's a hard direction. If you're into the complex, there's a McDonald's at the commercial complex. It's a sidewalk that would be extended across the first entrance by the McDonald's, because the commercial center does have a sidewalk that leads out into the ditch area there. And so now that the commercial center's done and we know what we've got out there, it would be nice just to fix up that entrance and the area around McDonald's so people can walk in and enter into the complex without going on to the actual driveway and walking amongst traffic getting into the commercial center. The Fallon culvert, again, it was a 2024 project. It's a culvert replacement on the Elginfield drain. We did the engineering. I shouldn't call it a carryover project. It's a project we started in 2024. It was engineered in the engineering was done in 2024 with the idea that with approval of council, we would go to construction in 2025. It is a replacement of an existing cement culvert on the Elginfield drain. It's located near Stonehouse on Fallon Drive. It's been identified in our bridge inspections as needing done basically 1 to 5 year type conditions. So it does need to be replaced. Yeah, it's open for council's consideration. It's one that we could extend out another year, but it's a project that really has to be done at some point in the short term. The Corsi line culvert replacement is a 2024 project. It is a replacement. We're going to move from a cement culvert on Corsi line and going to a steel culvert, and extending the width of the road and allowing the safety of the road to be improved there. Right now, the road conditions are, because the cement culvert current is so narrow, and the road is starting to fall in and being held up with temporary measures to support the road base out there. So that is a carryover project from 2024. Water Street construction. This is a project that we started. We've got the engineering completed in 2024. We were hoping to have some actual construction activity started in 2024 with the investigation of the culvert to the north on Water Street. There is some gabion baskets that are caving in there that need to be replaced, but due to the condition of the culvert and in the culvert's relationship with the first house there, it is extremely close. It's complicated the project because we're going to have to do some underpinning of the foundation. We're going to have to do some pilings to support the area. It has become a very complicated issue to work on that culvert beside the house. And that's the north culvert. So that's why construction didn't start in 2024. Construction will start in 2025. The price that you see, or the cost, the estimate that's in there is for the construction, engineering, and the project management of that project. That is the road portion. The other portion of the Water Street reconstruction is the water main, and the water main falls under capital for water. That little section of road needs a new water main. So it's a kind of a hand-in-hand trigger there. We're redoing the road while we're redoing the water main that's existing there. So and that'll show up. Just a side note, and Catherine can speak to this. This is what we've highlighted for use for some of our funding towards this project, because it is a big project. The numbers there are a little more than what we would normally see in a road reconstruction, but due to 2 cement culverts on Water Street on the Bend Drain, both of them need rehab. So we're going to be rehabbing both those. The good news there is we're going to extend their life probably around 20 to 30 years with this work. So we are getting the benefit of the rehab work at this time. So there is a benefit to the reconstruction and the culverts as well. The new sidewalks there will be a much more safety measures going across the cement culverts than what's there. It'll be up to today's standards, so that the pedestrians are a little more safe for walking and biking on that street. The Sainsbury line, I have listed as the paved shoulders and the street lights. This is one, again, we started in 2024. We did some engineering on the street lights. The engineering is in place. We have the plans to install the street lights on Sainsbury line. And the paved shoulder was the widening of the shoulder in conjunction with the county project of paving Sainsbury. We were going to put the paved shoulders in, and that was from Market Street to Gilmore. Gilmore to Fallon will still get widened shoulders, but it's part of the bike. It's part of the bike plan at the county. So the county would cover those costs from Gilmore to Fallon. The bike plan actually calls for the bikes to divert into Gilmore and come down through town rather than come straight down to Market Street. So the municipality, if wanting to have the paved shoulders further to Market Street, would have to be on the hook for the paving of those shoulders. I still would suggest that we keep the 20,000 in for the paved shoulders in the budget in 2025. I would suggest, council, that there is no hurry on the streetlights until we get the paved shoulder. We have the engineering in place to trigger that work. If the demand said, came along that we wanted the streetlights in, but I would recommend that we would look at the streetlights for 2026 after the shoulders got in. Complicating this whole process is the development and the urbanization of Saintsbury from basically Market Street up to we have a development that's in the works, Timber Ridge, and there's a new school that is proposed for this area, and both of them are pressuring for urbanization in a section of this part of town. Until we actually get details on the urbanization, I will go with our similar plan of widening the shoulders and keeping the engineering ready for the streetlights. If the urbanization does trigger, that'll be more information brought back to council, and we can talk about that, but that'll be in a DC reserve that would pay for that urbanization. That would not be coming out of our normal capital reserves for that urbanization, but that would be more information to come back to council, which could affect the paving of the shoulders and the streetlights that I'm proposing. The next project, I think it's time I'm bringing forward to council, and we've talked about this one in the past a couple of times, is Scott's Drive. We have development, a Sawbo Fields development by the water tower. They have rebuilt Scott's Drive in their section of the development, and they've urbanized it, curb, sidewalk, streetlights, and it leads out to William Street. And it's a gravel section of road. The development is also in the, when the development was going in, there was a discussion that they were to upgrade the intersection, the William Street intersection. And that would be, again, part of the development because of the introduction of pedestrians and traffic there. It was their cost. It wasn't to be the township's cost to upgrade that intersection. So that is moving forward this year. They're going to upgrade the intersection at William and Scott's Drive. So the township is still left with a small section of gravel between the development and the intersection. I am proposing that we pave it. We pave it wide enough to put a bike and a pedestrian lane on. I am not recommending we go urbanization because we don't have quality storm control in that area. Also, the sidewalks would not lead to anywhere on William Street as of yet. The sidewalks stop at George. So we would need to look at urbanization of William Street or some sort of connecting link if we extended the sidewalks out to Scott's Drive. So at this time, I think the most cost-effective way for that neighborhood would be to just pave the little section of gravel, extend the width of the road base to incorporate a bike lane, a pedestrian lane, which means a bit of ditching. We replace the culverts, the laneway culverts that are existing there, so everything would be good for the next little while there. So the cost there is $180,000. That includes engineering, tendering, base work, and paving. And then the other next one would be Nicoline Ave. And again, this is out of the asset management plan. After Water Street, Nicoline Ave was on the list. We did some investigation this last summer because there was an indication that we might be replacing the water main in Nicoline, but it turns out that when we investigated it, it did come back PVC to a point where the engineers suggested that it not be replaced. So the project has kind of cut back. It really is now falling on asphalt and a rehabilitation. We would basically mill out the paving, fix any curb that is in rough shape, and replace any sidewalk that sections of sidewalk that have sunken or have issues. I believe the sidewalk there is the right width, so accessibility, we're still okay. We just need to bring it up to rehabilitation so that we have a nice street if we're in there ripping everything up. The estimate there for 550,000 is engineering, tendering, and project management and construction. It also includes a percentage of curb to be replaced and a percentage of sidewalk replaced. So it would not include total reconstruction, but more of a rehabilitation of the road. The next project I would like, I'm kind of excited about this next project, and this is the Clandy-Boy, I call it the Clandy-Boy Stormwater Control. It's not a big project, and it's a project that got started back in 2006 when there was some building, when the subdivision was being built on off of Port Street. Port Street floods during heavy rain events, and as we know, these heavy rain events are starting to develop more and more. So the street floods, the water goes right across the street, floods both ditches, and then goes into some water tracks that are designed, that are engineered through that subdivision. But it's designed through a whole bunch of people's backyards where, it just is, it's something we probably would not engineer at this time of year. So, or this, at this point in our, we've learned a little bit more about stormwater control. So the idea here is to create basically like a dry pond on the east side of Port Street. It was recommended back in 2006 to be done, and it just never kind of grabbed hold as a project. But when we were seeing these events developing more and more, I think this is something that needs to be introduced there. I would like to put this project forward for funding. I think this would be a great climate control fund project that we would be looking at, controlling stormwater through environmental ways rather than in a big holding pond. That would be my goal on this project is to reach out to some funding on this and create a real nice spot down there. I think it also has the ability I would like to reach out to the neighbors and to other landowners there because I'd like to work with the local farmers and develop this in a way that would work down there. So I bring this forward to council. I'm looking more for council's consent to maybe bring this to develop this project and put in some funding requests for it and keep council in the loop on this. So I'm not looking for so much as a blank consent, but as a consent to say, hey, Jeff, let's see what you can do with this project. I'm excited about that one. I've been down there when it floods and the fields and the dirt and the mud and the topsoil that comes out of the farmers' fields. We have to go down and we have to scrape the roads, and it is a situation that would be nice to address. The next project I include is a sidewalk on Main Street to the south, and this is to the old Clover road. We've talked about this. This is this technically is on MTO. It's outside the connecting link, so it's on the MTO portion of the Highway 4 Richmond Street. We did a kind of a plan. We did look into some work this year on it. We had a meeting with the MTO, and we've looked into some very preliminary, just to get a feelers on how the MTO would address us on putting sidewalks down here. Again, one of the biggest problems we have in this area is there's no storm. We have the storm I'm going to call it to the south on Richmond there, and we would have to get an outlet to it. The water is to go there. It is designed in that watershed to get to that pond. And I think that would be a huge benefit to a lot of the properties along there. I know, all the properties that are looking at upgrading the McEwen gas bar, and there's a couple other ones that we're talking about, and there's a dental office in there. They all struggle with stormwater. So there is some benefits here, not only of extending the sidewalk, but looking at doing maybe some engineering that would just improve that section of road and urbanize it there. So my proposal here is to put in $5,000 in 2025 for engineering, because when we have to sit down and we have to go over things with the MTO, it just, there's a lot of red tape to get through. So I think in 2025, we get through the red tape. And then in 2026, we look at engineering, and then construction in 2027, working with the MTO on that. I think that timeline's aggressive. But if you don't put it down and you don't work towards it, you never get there. So that would be my goal there. And at any time, if council, when I bring back more numbers on engineering and we look at input on stormwater, sidewalks, street lighting, all that information will come back to council for input from council on what they want to see there. So right now, $5,000 in 2025 to keep working on a plan towards that area. Oh, that's my last one.
Last one for now. Darcy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first section there is the carryover projects, the soccer field complex, ongoing construction of the fields, the bleachers. So that's for the bleacher area and to add bleachers to the premier field. Protective netting, which is to protect balls from going into the lagoons and that long grass areas. That has been a complaint already with having one field open, that there is a lot of balls going into that area. The pool heater, which talking to the contractor, he has in his shop now. It's just a matter of him finding a slow down time to install it in ours. So it'll probably be in 2025 before we get it installed, but he does have it and it is ready to be installed. And then the new projects. So the Granton Ballpark. So we did do a lot of work there. We did the fencing. We did new lights. And then this is to finish it off with the infield to go to red clay. We did apply for a grant through the Jays Care grant, like we did last year. So we're still hoping and hopeful for that to come through, but that is a $55,000 project to convert to red clay. The Market Street ball diamond. So that would be a complete, basically brand new fence. There is some issues with a low fence and a low backstop at that diamond. Balls will go into the parking lot, will go into the fans. The benches, where the benches are, is also that 3-4 foot fence that with older kids, they're standing with their heads above it and foul balls can go directly into the bench area. And then I'm proposing that we go out to 150 feet and buy a portable fence or a movable fence for the outfield that could then collapse into, if we wanted to do a fair or a festival at Market Street, it would still allow for that, but would give a home run fence reachable for like a U13, U11 age group, which would be a nice small diamond, but would be a nice asset for, as I know, even just for softball, they've added at least one more rep team and probably a couple more house league teams as they have in the last few years. So it is growing. They are using Market Street more, and I just think we need to upgrade the Market Street diamond. Lane ropes for the pool, that's more. We did host a competition this year. We do need new lane ropes. Our lane ropes are very old, and we patched them together to make them work for this year, but I'm proposing to do new lane ropes for next year. Volleyball nets are much the same. They are just old. They have been used. We do have 2 volleyball leagues now, so twice a week they're getting set up and they're just in tough shape, and we're proposing to get some new industrial volleyball nets that would be good for those leagues. So that's why those are there. Mobile soccer nets. So that is soccer nets that we can, that'll be on, they're basically on a wheel that you can bend down, move to cut and that kind of stuff. That is just for the Premier Field, those 2 nets for the Premier Field. We are working with the Lucan Soccer Club that they would supply the nets for the other fields. So with moving some from the arena, but some new ones as well. And the soccer club seems to be on board to help us out and do that. So that is just soccer nets for the Premier Field. key system for the gym. So that's to allow some more access to the gym. Right now, the gym is only open when they staff it. This would allow for them to give a key fob to their membership so they could get in the hours that the arena is open. The reason why I'm suggesting that we fund this project is because at the end of the day, it is our facility, and if we did, for either reason, decide to change operators, that we would then have the key fob under us, so that we could put a new operator in there, and the gym would still be accessible as per usual, and we would have the access to that. So the next one is the sprinkler extension. That was just something that got brought up, I believe, during the renovation, and it's something that needs to be done to come to code. So the sprinkler extension, it's into the active living center and down into the basement of the active living center. We need to put a sprinkler in. We got an extension but it needs to be done this year. So that will need to be done. Home side dressing room renovation. That was talked about, and we did approve that at a council meeting to apply for a grant. So that is the money there for that. Trails. So the two main trails that are in on that 100,000 would be an additional trail around the soccer complex, as well as an Elm Street Trail extension that would be paved to take you to the All Wheels Park and then over to the bridge. So it would come off of Albert Street to the All Wheels Park and to the bridge, just to kind of complete that loop, so people could roll into the All Wheels Park. And then signage. So this is basically a number to get. We know we need signage at a lot of our parks and facilities. One signage that I can know for me, I've unfortunately experienced where you call 911 and you don't know exactly where you are, whether it's an out-of-town team or someone that doesn't know the exact address, and 911 gets confused and they take longer to get to you because they don't know. So I would like to have every park and every ball diamond signed to say, if you need to call 911, here's your nearest address, here's what to tell them. As one part of the sign, we'd also like to get big signs at all of our parks that are the same with our new branding, and it would look nice at all the parks. So I'm asking for 20,000 to do as much as we can this year. Chances are we might have to do some more next year, but do as much as we can in 2025 and then go from there. And then the other discussion item that hasn't been included is the planning for a second ice pad, the architectural design. I did talk to an architect today. I think to get architectural drawings, a plan, some feasibility, as well as like what would be in it, and then a costing would be in the $50,000 to $70,000 range. That would include a little bit of public consultation of what we want to see into the second ice pad or that building, and then the architectural drawings and the plans and everything. So that would be about the 50 to 70,000. That hasn't been included in anything. That was kind of a discussion point on where we want to go, but that was recommendation one, as you guys know, for the Parks and Master Plan. And I think that's all for me.
Okay. Now, we're going back to Jeff Little.
So we have the water carryover projects. The main one is the Water Street water main replacement at $400,000. That's an addition to what the reconstruction number was in the roads capital. So the project itself is a $2.1 million project there. The other really carryover projects is we're still working on some of the computer upgrades. We have updated our SCADA and our software in 2024, but we still need to upgrade to make sure that the booster station is all upgraded with the computers there. It's one of the last parts of the system. So. The other item that we're looking in under the water, and it's not listed under here, is the recommendation from the ministry to we have to put in an alarm system on the tower. They recommended that that an alarm system be installed on the tower. I don't have numbers on that. I'll have to go back and, well, that's something that we would bring forward once we knew the numbers on it. Then moving to wastewater, I haven't got the updated numbers for 2025 for the expansion. We are looking at finishing the design, but the design is in the last stages. So it really is going from the design to the tender process. So those numbers will come back to council in a memo for 2025. And part of that discussion, when it does come back to council, is it then starts the big discussion on what we actually want to do in 2025, and what kind of timetable we want to set for the expansion. So, yeah, there's more information going to come. That's going to be one of our biggest discussion come the new year. In the carryover projects, the main trunk line is set at 780,000. This is the trunk line replacement from Campanelli to Kent or Walnut through the easement there. It needs to be upgraded when all of our development builds out at the current planned rate, or the current land in the in our boundaries anyways. That line will be at 104%, running at 104%. So we know that main trunk line has to be upgraded. It'll be updated and upgraded to take in the next group of when we change up with our Ron, I forget the name, our boundaries. When our boundaries change, yes, when we update that, we are looking at updating the trunk line to accommodate growth. So it is in the DCs. It is also in some of our funding applications that we are still waiting on. So it's part of the funding that we've asked for with our expansion on the sewage treatment plant, because it kind of goes a little bit hand in hand. They are growth projects that would allow us to build more homes. The sanitary modeling on the west side, that has been a carryover project. The pressure originally when we put that in, the budget was to get it as soon as possible with the cooling down of the building sector, and the need to trigger an expansion before we build more sanitary mains. The pressure to do that modeling eased a little bit. So I put it back in just because I know we're starting to see maybe some things start to move. I know when we if we do trigger an expansion, there will be a look to where our west side sanitary mains are going to go and how they're going to look. So I do keep that in the project to move forward. Carryover project, there is a computer upgrade. It's still listed, but it is for the Lucan wastewater treatment plant. And again, we haven't triggered that computer upgrade because we were kind of waiting to see if the expansion would go, because there's a lot of the hard wiring for the SCADA and a lot of the wiring in the system is going to be upgraded. So it would be nice to do the computer and all the upgrades there as a single unit as part of the expansion. If the expansion does not go forward, or if we decide to slow down on the expansion, I would move that computer upgrade to the list in 2025 for completion.
So that's all the projects that you've heard. So I don't know if they're open the floor for any questions or discussion on those.
So as always, lots of projects to consider. And I guess that shouldn't come as a surprise as a growing, bustling community. So I will look to council for questions or comments, or if you need any sort of clarification on anything. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a few, but I might just do one or two and then pass it on to someone. So Jeff, my first question for Jeff, traffic control measures for 20,000. Does that include upgrade to the crosswalk that we have right outside in front of the Community center, we've got a high volume of traffic. We've got a pedestrian and vehicle traffic. I don't know if that's included as well, because that's something we talked about last year that didn't make it, and I would just like to revisit that. So I don't know, does that include that?
It, to the councilor's inquiry, this was originally put in 2024 for speed control measures in our 40-kilometer-hour zones around our either our school or our parks. And it was designed more around speed humps, signage, pavement markings, and that sort of thing. So I didn't consider upgrades to the side to the street crossing sign. That would have to be in something additional to this amount.
Okay, thank you. May I continue? So Jeff, and just another question. When we talked about the carryover projects for the sidewalk extensions and the road work that we've got for the asphalt prices and those sorts of things, do you see those prices jumping by the time we get to these projects? Like right now, because I know these prices going up quite quickly, but I'm just wondering, is these estimates that you've put in here, are these going to be realistic a year or 6 months from now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do base it on 2024 numbers. And then we try to build in some increases into that. So unless there's, one of the issues with pavement and concrete is the supply of the raw material. If something were to change that caused the effect of oil to go up or down, would change this cost, but it would be pretty close to the ballpark area there. Yeah.
Great, thank you. May I just ask Darcy, I just one more if I just may. So, and Darcy, just about the mower, and I did see it demonstrated. I'm just wondering if you, are we going to look or see a sort of a cost analysis about how much staff time it's going to save? And it's just, I mean, like I said, I'm just looking for I think you said 40,000. And I'm just wondering with like over a year, like how much staff time is this going to save? I mean, it's going to make the fields look great and I've seen it in action, but I'm just wondering how much that's going to save staff time and where else they can be used.
Yeah, to you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Regan. We did a quick analysis on just kind of going by one. We figure we're really close to 20,000 a year in staff time to cut the soccer complex itself. No trimming, just cutting the soccer complex. So at 43,000, you're getting 20,000, but you're not cutting that staff time. You're reallocating it to other resources, but we are saving that staff time to go to other resources.
Right. Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I may have some more in a minute.
So I never saw it, obviously demonstrated. There still needs to be a staff person there.
You, Madam Mayor, no, actually there doesn't. So it actually can cut in the middle of the night. It's perfectly safe. It has alarms. My phone will go crazy if anyone decides to try to pick it up, as well as it will go crazy and loud, and it automatically has a GPS that tracks it as soon as it's picked up. And it actually tracks it all the time. I can know where it is at all times. So you can set it at any point in time. It'll go out by itself as long as, so what we would probably do is build almost like a little doghouse for it. And as long as within 8 feet, it comes out, it hits the satellite, it goes. So yeah, it'll alert us on our phones. We can check on our phone where it's at any point in time. Yeah, so no, it does not need staff there to operate.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, yeah, sorry. I just,
No, actually,
Yep.
CAO and I were talking, it sounds like a sponsorship opportunity.
I think I'm.
Exactly.
Darcy and I have plans for that. I would, sorry.
Yeah.
We already talked about, sorry.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Councillor Hodgins, Councillor Westman, and then I will go to the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the downtown improvements slide, so there's the total is 250,000 for the streetlights. I think it was 110 for the poles, and then 140 for electrical upgrades. And I'm just looking at the reserves summary sheet, and I just see it identified as 110,000 under the streetscape improvement. So I just wanted to ask where the additional 140,000, if that's allocated elsewhere, or what the source of funding for that piece is.
It's
It is part of that number, the 1.865 in the road construction. It just, and it's on my spreadsheet. For some reason, it didn't print on your copy. I just noticed that as I was going through. So the 140 is included in the number. It's just not listed there under road construction on your copy. Sorry about that.
No, no worries. Thanks for clarifying. If I may, Madam Mayor, continue with a couple other ones similar to Councilor Regan. On the equipment with the wood chipper and that being potentially used for emergency response or when we have heavy storms. I think we did get an application in for the emergency preparedness grant funding for our fire department. And just wondering if we maximize that for the full amount, or if we might be able to look at using some portion of that towards that piece of equipment.
When we applied for that grant, there was, you had to list specific items for that and then the funding would come that, and then most were in different ranges. So I think we were in a good amount for what they provided. This didn't come up in those conversations as a opportunity at that time. So we went with what we knew and applied before the deadline on those. So could this have been? Sure, but it's not part of that application.
Great, thank you. The discussion item, and I think it's not included right now, but for the second sidewalk snowplow, I think there could be good justification for that. It is fairly large cost. But I just wanted to know, I guess, what staff is recommending there. Is that just a want or an idea, or is that something that we should look at adding on there? Because I think right now, just to clarify, it's not included, but it's kind of on there for discussion.
Yeah, and through the mayor, that I would highly recommend that. I think over the last week, I've seen our issues with relying on one piece of equipment, and it's a piece of equipment that, like I said, I just touched on. And we run into an issue. It is hard to find a lease or a rental piece of equipment that can help us under those conditions on the sidewalk. Now we were in extreme conditions, but our machine has to be capable of handling those extreme conditions. So after seeing what took place in the last week, I think, and there were people out walking the next day. So if people say that people do not need to get out on sidewalks, well, there is people that need those sidewalks. So I don't want to use the word strongly, but I am recommending this as and that's why I brought it forward now for council's consideration. I would, it would hope that I could bring back more information for council, but with the direction of council to maybe bring that information back would be something I would be interested in maybe getting something from council along those lines.
Can I just ask a question on that, since we're talking about the sidewalk? Which reserve would that come out? That would come out of the equipment reserve. And so just so I'm clear, all the items that are listed, Public Works and Parks, all come out of that equipment reserve.
That's correct.
So if we wanted to do that, we would have, with the exception of the snowplow, right? Does the snowplow come out of that one?
Yes. But that wouldn't come out until 2026
Until 2026.
because of the lead time.
Got you. Okay. So if we were to consider the sidewalk plow, we'd have to look at doing something else, because is there enough money in there?
Currently with those projects, the ballots there shows it's 124,000.
124.
And
if
I
it's
said 225 was
224.
your
Yeah. Okay.
budget, so you'd have to spread things out differently
Yep.
or
Okay.
fund it from the tax base.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just maybe closing out. I was just gonna mention to Jeff just about that flooding piece on Port Street. I just would suggest maybe reach out to Sawville Bayfield Conservation Authority if that falls within their jurisdiction, because they do lots of interesting stormwater control projects with more agricultural areas, and they might have some ideas or suggestions or may want to partner with that as well. So just something to consider. And then just, I guess one last thing, I mean, just looking kind of big picture, and I'm looking at the reserves sheet that we have too, and just on the far side of kind of the total 2025 capital projects, just seeing that that $5.2 million item under 2025 capital projects, it is a really big number. So, I mean, just looking at this sort of, macro, there's a lot of projects in here. And it's ambitious, and I just kind of question and just kind of have the thought, do we, is this kind of a wish list that we as council want to look at and, look for where we can find some savings and where we can scratch some things off. And that's probably more of a discussion with staff and seeing where the priorities really are. But it is a really big number to be looking at. So I think that's just something we have to keep in our minds. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, my esteemed colleagues covered some of it that I was interested in. I'm really supportive of the additional sidewalk machine. I think with all the growth that we're seeing and the unpredictability of the weather, it's better to be prepared and covered there. The roller, I actually wasn't sure what I was seeing, but I saw one last year. I'm not sure exactly where I was. I think North Middlesex maybe. That coming down a gravel road, I've driven gravel roads after grading before, and it's really treacherous, especially if you're in a smaller vehicle. But when I followed the grader, it packed it down tight, and there was no sinking in the dirt and drifting around. So I think that's a smart move for us to do that, just from a liability perspective and for road conditions. The Parks and Rec, the tractor you're talking about, is that the John Deere? The green John Deere, is that the one you're looking at, or?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So we have a green John Deere, but we're looking to keep it. This would be an additional small lawnmower or tractor it'd be smaller than the one we have now. It would keep the ball groomer on it at all times, and then it would be more of a groomer and then help out with loading the top dresser and that.
All right, yeah, that's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Manders, do you have any comment at this point?
Yeah, I do. I've got a few comments. One, I agree with Councillor Hodgins at the very end there, whether some of this can be, whether it not scratched off or whether it be delayed or whether it be, again, it's with it being counted, it's really obviously we want to replace our reserves, and that's what we do, but it just does seem aggressive in a lot of money and a lot of stuff being spent. But I do want to comment on a few things. Jeff Little there, the downtown improvements, I'm trying to get my head around the streetscape light posts, sidewalk replacement. If you were satisfied and we were satisfied with the light posts, is it the sidewalk then that we need to replace ideally? And then if we want to, now would be the time to do the electrical service, but it only needs to be done because we want to improve our light posts. Is that correct what I'm saying?
That's correct. Basically what you said there, Councillor Manders, that's correct. Because we're triggering the new posts and the work being done, we know that at some point the underground servicing needs to be replaced. Technically, the conduit, it has to be put back into conduit. The wires aren't actually in conduit right now. There is a bit of discussion whether we can bore bore new conduit in place down the main street, which would limit the amount of sidewalk that would have to come out. That would be something I'd have to look into more. I included a price to replace sidewalk, so I would hope that I could come back with a number if we could get a bore in and bore the conduit in through the downtown and have minimum sidewalk replaced. I would hope that cost would come down.
But so I guess what I might as well just say it. What if I as a counselor and I'm okay with the light posts that are existing, and I'm fine with that going forward. It's never been, somebody's never brought it up to me the last years. What would can you just leave that then? Like, can it be left?
Yeah, at this time, there's nothing in the code that says we have to change out the electrical that's in the ground. It's just that we know that eventually it's going to give us issues. And it would be I guess there must be some sort of safety factor there to bring it up to code. There's nothing triggering it that we must do it now. The only reason I'm triggering it is if we were replacing all the poles, that we include it with the new conduit.
And the new pole, so we could use the existing poles.
Well, that would be a question for Lisa. I think the idea here is the existing poles are still functioning.
Yeah.
It's whether we want to do the streetscape with the
more architectural posts,
exactly,
correct?
with those poles. Yeah.
So I guess my comment's going to be, I don't know what contingency we put in for this project for it to be going over or not. I get that I go through a lot of towns and there is some nice architectural posts, but I just look at redeploying some of this and again, once it's done, and we have the street posts that we have. But again, there's only so much money we have. So it's a comment I want to make. And certainly I would be extremely disappointed if the numbers we're looking at was higher for the street light posts. So I just want to make that comment. I don't know what other people think, but please. So that's
Okay.
Continue on.
Yep, just continue on.
Okay. What to do? Equipment, the automatic lawnmower. No, Darcy, I guess I had a different vision of the guys using it or girls using it, or your team using it, and potentially whipper stipping and maintaining the area while it's automatically cutting. But you're more foreseeing it just working after hours, are you?
You, Madam Mayor, yes, yeah, I more see it working after hours or early mornings and not necessarily having, there might be someone there trimming at the same time. I'm not saying there wouldn't be, but there wouldn't have to be.
And do you see that just do you see that being used at the ball diamonds, being used at everywhere, or mainly just soccer fields?
So that unit would only be good at just the soccer fields. They can only go a certain distance from their home base with the charge. So you technically could pick them up and put them in the back of the truck and drive them over, but I would only foresee that one being used at the soccer complex.
Okay. I've got a couple more things. Sorry, I'm just going to scan up.
Yeah, just keep going.
Yep. So I'm just going up. No, Darcy, the truck, you're going to keep the plow truck because it can still plow, get the new truck. But when that plow truck does die, is your plan to put the plow then on the new truck and not ask for another one?
You, Madam Mayor, I would have to see how that goes. I don't want to predict the future. I would see that as a possibility for sure, is riding that plow truck out and then putting the plow on the new truck. Because we don't have as much travel in the winter as we do the summer, but in the summer, 3 trucks is really what we need to do. If we have one run truck with the lawnmower going to Granton, one doing something in town, we got no trucks for anybody to go to a facility or if they get a call somewhere. So I do think 3 trucks is probably the right number for our department, but for right now, I would have to see, I guess would be my answer for that.
Sorry, Darcy, not to, it just seems aggressive and a lot of spending in the Parks and Rec and projects here. When you said that's all I have for now, that was good. Um, the, I just, you know, I don't know where to start. Again, people, again, our community wants to see improvements. They want to see things being done. It just seems like a lot being done at once. And then can this be spread out over a couple years? I'm not saying anything doesn't need to be done on this in particular in time. I think the protective netting is important. Obviously, the pool heater, got different things. I'm not sure. Again, different things that they can be plotted out in the next 2 years, 3 years. It just does seem very aggressive. And to manage all that and to manage it properly, I guess is just a comment. Hopefully you can have a look at that. I do have one thing. Do you know, and if not, could you request that the baseball at each age group just gives the numbers of each age group of who's from Middlesex Center and who's from Lucan Biddulph baseball? Or do you already get those numbers?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I don't receive the addresses or postal codes from the players at this time. If it's the will of council, I have no problem requesting that, but I don't.
I don't need you to have their, well, I would trust the conveners that just, if they could just say, hey, I just think for planning and that for the young age groups to T-ball to blast ball going forward, just knowing, I don't think it's a bad thing to know if we have 95% or 80%, you know, from Middlesex Center or 50% or 60% using the facilities. That's all. I don't think I think it'd be a good thing to, I believe we share that. We cover 100% of our costs, Lucan Biddulph. I just don't know what percentage is being used by Lucan Biddulph. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have no problem asking that question of what percentage is from Middlesex Center, what percentage is from Lucan. Now, I know with the baseball organization, they do use Middlesex Center diamonds as well.
For sure.
So, and I don't know the number, but I can definitely find out as much as information as I can for sure.
And exactly. And it's just, all it is just to, and I think for age groups too, knowing going forward. And also it can look like what I'm trying to say is, you know what, if 70% is being used by them, 40 by us, but the flip side, if it's reversed, then you know what, maybe one day we might be asked by Middlesex Center to support something going on, whether it be nets or doing something there, because 70% of Lucan Biddulph's going to using their facilities, which I'd be okay with. Again, if we're using it, I just think it'd be interesting to know, that's all. And anything else? The signs, the signs, I think is a great idea for 911. I was surprised at the pricing, the ballpark pricing and the 911, and I was surprised that, you know, maybe needing to come forward with more money. I don't, Jeff Little would know better at this, Darcy. I thought the county of Middlesex had a sign shop and we could use them. Now, whether they price it expensively, I don't know, but I'm just throwing that out there, maybe to touch base with them on pricing as an idea is all.
To you, Madam Mayor, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely, I didn't know about that, but we can definitely use that for pricing for sure.
That's all, thanks.
Okay, I might just jump on that. I think that they will. They'll work with design, but it's also not just a 911 sign. It's a whole branded sign, right? That's what you're looking to construct, and you're looking to do your facilities like in phases. So not necessarily doing all of them this year, right? Okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I would be looking to do whatever we could with the 20,000. So it might be 4 or 5 or 3, like all depending on how we do. We'd obviously look for the best price and do the best we can. But yeah, I just didn't want to guarantee I could do every facility for the 20,000.
And that was all you had, Dave? Okay. So I guess I have the same comments that Councillor Hodgins and the Deputy Mayor had. It does seem like there's a lot of projects, both Parks and Rec and through Public Works. It seems very aggressive. And I would ask, like, do we think we're capable of doing them all? Because quite often, as we've seen in the presentation, and we can speak historically, we always have then projects carry forward that we aren't able to complete in the year that we say that we're going to. So that's my first, kind of gut is really is this a capital plan that we're actually going to see through in 2025? Because as we know, there's demands on our departments. So I think we've kind of got to look at that a little bit more closely to see what really is realistic for 2025. Back to the sidewalk plow. And again, we can't do it now, but in the event, let's be positive that we're going to get funding for, another major project. Would that be something that we would be able to then open it up and put in the DCs? Because, as we grow, that's a piece of equipment that, we need.
Maybe Catherine is the person to speak on this, but I actually believe it's in the DCs as a second unit. Did we include it in?
I know it was talked about at the time, but I off the top of my head, I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
I'd have to go double check that.
So
Certainly if we can find that out, because if it is in the DCs, that does make it a little bit more palatable, I think, to think about moving on that. Because hopefully then we can start collecting on it. What else did I have? I guess yeah, I like the idea of ABCA. The second ice pad costing design, I will say, if I'm looking at things to kind of put a pen through, I would say maybe that's one that could be pushed off for a year. I know we want to get moving on it and, addressing our Parks and Rec master plan. And I think we all understand that that's the number one priority. But I'm not, I mean, I don't know how long it takes to do a design, and whether that could be put off to 2026. I mean, there's no dollars in there yet. You've just said that, but I would say, 2026, maybe start to have that conversation, but I would back to the deputy mayor's comments about the streetscape. The reality is we have a streetscape reserve. We've gone through a streetscape whole plan where we paid consultants, and at some point we have to do something with it. And I think from my understanding from Lisa, this is kind of the first step in actually addressing the streetscape plan, because we really haven't done much with the exception of the new signs, but I don't even think that that didn't even come out of the streetscape budget. That came out of your ECDEP budget. So, or did it come out of signage? It came out of Jeff's budget. But I mean, for me, if we're not going to invest in the studies that we take and the recommendations, then I would say anytime a staff person comes to say that we need a plan, then why are we spending money to put a plan together if we're not going to start investing in it? So that's my 2 cents on the streetscape comments that you made, Deputy Mayor. So I like the idea of doing the all wheels trail. I think that closes that off. And I know that there's concerns, with some of the neighbors, but I do think it's better to close that project off and make it the project that it's supposed to be. So I'm supportive of that. But I would go back and I would just say which ones do we realistically think that we can do from both departments? Any other comments from anybody? Councillor Regan.
Thank you,
And
Madam-
I did see your hand,
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, but I'll go to Daniel first.
All right, okay, thank you. No, I was just wondering, just with what Councillor Hodges, Deputy Mayor, said about how many projects, I'm just wondering, when staff comes back with a final report, would staff be coming back and saying, these are the ones that we can defer? These are the projects that we can defer? I know that we can make suggestions, but I'm just wondering if that's possible, because there is a lot. There is quite a lot, because you don't want to do too many things at once, and you want to do one thing, and we can do what we can do well, and then but I'm just wondering if there are things that can be deferred. That don't have to be. So I'm just asking if staff would come back with that. Please. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, did you have some comments?
Just, I agree on the design of a future second pad. I find, one, would that though assist us in being shovel ready for a grant? That's the only thing I always think about, that we've invested and it sits there. The problem with also asking for input and having design, then that gets our constituents excited that we're getting a second pad right away. And if they talk to me, we're not, but it gets us ready for a grant, a future grant, maybe one day. And I guess if there, and I just don't know if there's grants out there, I would want to jump on probably that. If we think that would assist us in getting, 50% funding, that's all. That's my only comment. So.
I did have a new question. I can't find it. The Granton Ballpark, if we don't get the grant, do you still want to go ahead with putting the red clay, or how do you see that going?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I am proposing that we go ahead, grant or not, but in the same sense with the list of projects and with Daniel's comments, that would be something that I would, with the amount of work that we did this year, I would be willing to defer that project if the grant doesn't come through to a year down the road. So that one would be one that I would put up for deferral.
And then do you have any idea when they make that announcement?
No, I think, when did we find out this year? Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it doesn't matter. And then just Jeff, the sidewalk on Main Street. So I mean, I think that I like this plan because I think we've acknowledged for years that we need to think about the walkability on Main Street. So I like this phased approach, and I think that will give you enough time to continue your discussions with MTO. Because they certainly seemed in that initial meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, they recognized working with us to get to that sort of urbanization. So happy to see it kind of phased that way, for sure. Any other comments, additional? Nothing? Nothing? So I don't know, I don't think we've really helped you. We've said it's a great wish list. It's a big wish list. And maybe we're putting it back to the your leadership to maybe think about either prioritizing things a little bit as to really what can be done. I think council would be maybe a little bit more comfortable with that.
So just want to comment. So the approach we took when we did 2024 budget is we did put a sheet together, and because we had the same conversation when we presented the 2024 capital, extensive list. So we did go through at that point. After that meeting, we went through before we came back to finalize the budget, is go through and say and made a chart about things we have to do, things we would like to do, the things we can defer and push off, and we can kind of come back with that. We did have because of the timing of when we did that budget process, we did have that conversation through the finance committee. We don't necessarily have to do that, but we can talk about that option as well. But definitely come back to staff and we can go through the list and come up with something before we go to the final budget approval sometime in January. And then you also have the operating budget conversation that we'll have that will kind of go hand in hand, thinking about all of this at the same time. And then after that, you'll be able to have the full picture and make some decisions early in the new year, I hope. If that's a good approach.
No, I'm comfortable with that approach. I would also say to my colleagues, I mean, we've heard directly from our leadership, kind of the explanation behind all of this. And I would encourage you to have continual conversation with our staff. I mean, we are meeting next week. That is the operational budget. But again, depending on how that conversation goes, it might lead us to be able to make some of these decisions as well. So, okay. Did you have any final comments, Deputy Mayor? Okay. With that, I do want to thank you guys for all the, all the work that you've done, in putting it together. As I say, it does go to show when you are a growing, thriving community, the pressures that are not only put on you operationally, but from a capital perspective. And I dare say that this is the kind of capital out forecast that we're going to have to be grappling with over the next few years. So, well, I do, as we continue to grow, right? The pressures. So with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the capital plan budget planning presentation for information, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. And we have one bylaw in front of us, and that is the confirming bylaw. So that if no one cares to speak to bylaw 56-2024 on its first, second, and third reading, it be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor, and that's carried. And resolved that we will adjourn our special council meeting at 6:57 p.m. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Safe travels, Deputy Mayor. Hopefully you don't
Thank
get
you.
snowed in.
No, I hear you. Yes, take care. See everyone.
Okay.